4,500 years ago, a civilization with no telescopes, no computers, and none of the tools we take for granted today, built structures so perfectly aligned with the stars that modern engineers are still struggling to explain how they did it. The Great Pyramid of Giza points almost perfectly to true north, with an error smaller than 1/10 of a single degree. The layout of the three pyramids at Giza mirrors the pattern of Orion's belt with a precision that has divided researchers for decades. And a single star, rising once a year just before dawn, was so important to ancient Egyptian survival that they built their entire calendar around the moment it appeared. None of this was an accident. This was the work of a civilization that understood the sky in ways that still genuinely impress researchers today. But here is where the story takes a turn. The ancient Egyptians themselves claim they did not figure any of this out on their own. According to their own sacred texts, the knowledge of writing, science, math, and astronomy was not discovered through human effort. It was handed down by the gods. Divine beings who gave their priests the secrets of the stars as a sacred gift. So what did the ancient Egyptians actually know? How did they develop a system of astronomy thousands of years before modern science? And where exactly did that knowledge come from? If ancient civilizations and the mysteries they left behind are the kind of thing that keeps you thinking, you are in exactly the right place. Hit subscribe so you never miss a video like this one, and let's get into it. To appreciate what the ancient Egyptians accomplished, you have to understand just how long they had been paying attention to the sky. Modern astronomy, as we know it, is only a few hundred years old. The ancient Egyptians were carefully watching the sky for thousands of years before that, recording what they saw, passing that knowledge from one generation of priests to the next, and building their entire way of life around the patterns they observed. This was not casual stargazing. It was a long-term, organized, and deeply serious project. Their most important star was not the sun and not the moon. It was a single, bright star called Sopdet, which we know today as Sirius. Sirius has a specific behavior the Egyptians tracked with remarkable precision. Once a year, after disappearing below the horizon for about 70 days, it rises again just before sunrise. The Egyptians noticed that this return of Sirius happened at almost exactly the same time as the annual flooding of the Nile River. The Nile flood deposited rich soil across the land, making agriculture possible in the middle of a desert. Without it, there was no food, and without food, there was no Egypt. So the moment Sirius returned to the sky became one of the most closely watched and sacred moments of the Egyptian year, and it became the anchor point of their entire calendar. Beyond Sirius, Egyptian priests also developed a system for tracking time through the night, using groups of stars that rose on the eastern horizon at regular intervals throughout the night. By watching which group was rising at any given moment, a trained priest could tell exactly what time it was in complete darkness. Or this is one of the earliest accurate systems of nighttime timekeeping in recorded history. And then there is their 365-day solar calendar, built to organize their farming season, their religious events, and their administrative year with real precision. For a civilization operating 4,500 years ago, this level of astronomical knowledge is remarkable. But what they built from that knowledge takes the story even further. If you stand at the Great Pyramid and measure its four sides against the cardinal directions, you find an alignment so close to perfect that the error is less than 3/60ths of a single degree. Achieving that accuracy today would require GPS and laser surveying tools. The ancient Egyptians did it with the stars. Our researchers believe they used a star that circles the North Celestial Pole without ever setting below the horizon. By tracking the leftmost and rightmost points of that star's nightly arc, and finding the middle point between them. A skilled observer could establish a near-perfect north-south line. The method works, but it requires years of consistent observation and a trained team of people to execute it with the precision we see in the pyramid. That alignment is already impressive on its own. But then there is the layout of the three main pyramids as a group. From above, they form a diagonal line with a slight offset, matching the shape and orientation of Orion's belt as it appeared in the sky around 2500 BCE. The researchers have debated whether this similarity is intentional or coincidental ever since it was first pointed out in the 1990s. What nobody seriously disputes is that the ancient Egyptians had a deep and well-documented connection to Orion. In their religious texts, Orion was directly linked to Osiris, the god of death and the afterlife. The pyramids were royal tombs. Aligning them with Osiris would have fit perfectly with everything the Egyptians believed about death, eternity, and the journey that followed it. There are also Egyptian temples throughout the country, built to align with specific astronomical events. The Temple of Abu Simbel was designed so that twice a year, on dates tied to the pharaoh's life, sunlight travels the full length of the inner corridor and lights up the statues at the far end. But getting that right required not just skilled building, but a precise understanding of the sun's exact position on those specific dates. The evidence is clear. The ancient Egyptians were running what amounts to a long-term, organized astronomy program, and they were encoding the results into the most permanent structures they could build. We are about halfway through, and what comes next is where the story gets genuinely strange. If you are enjoying this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so the next video comes straight to you. Now let's talk about the gods. The ancient Egyptians were very clear about where their knowledge came from. It did not come from human experimentation. According to their sacred texts, the knowledge of writing, science, math, and astronomy was given to humanity by a god named Thoth. Thoth was one of the most important figures in Egyptian religion. He was depicted as a man with the head of an ibis, and he was described as the god of writing, knowledge, science, and measurement. Some texts credit him with inventing writing itself and creating the calendar. In the Egyptian worldview, Thoth was the source from which all sacred knowledge flowed into the human world. The priests who served at Egypt's temples were not just religious figures. They were also astronomers, mathematicians, and record keepers. They believed their knowledge was sacred, that it came from a divine source, and that their job was to protect and apply it correctly. When they aligned a temple to a specific astronomical event, they were not just showing off skill. They were performing a sacred act, making the physical world reflect the divine order they believed governed the universe. This is where modern mystery culture takes its familiar turn. The argument goes that the Great Pyramid is too precise, the alignments too accurate, and the knowledge too advanced for a Bronze Age civilization. Something else must be responsible: ancient visitors, a lost civilization, extraterrestrial help. That argument has proven hard to shake from popular culture. But when you examine it closely, it rests on one shaky assumption: that ancient people were simply not smart or organized enough to figure this out on their own. That is not just factually weak. It is also quietly dismissive of what human beings are capable of when they work together across generations with a clear purpose and enough time. What the ancient Egyptians had was something we consistently underestimate. They had time, enormous amounts of it, and they had a powerful reason to use that time well, because the sky told them when to plant, when to prepare for the flood, and when the gods required observance. Egyptian civilization developed across thousands of years, with each generation building on the knowledge of the one before. The priests who built the Great Pyramid were not starting from scratch. They were working with centuries of accumulated astronomical observation behind them. The 365-day calendar did not appear in a flash. It was the result of generations of people counting, comparing, and correcting their measurements until the numbers matched reality. The same process explains the architectural alignments. You do not need a satellite to align a building with the stars. You need a clear sky, a reliable method, a team of trained observers, and the patience to test your work across multiple years before you build anything permanent. Egypt had all of that. It sits in one of the clearest sky environments on Earth. It had a priestly class whose entire purpose was to observe, record, and apply celestial knowledge. And it had a culture that valued permanence above almost everything else. As for the gods, the answer turns out to be both simpler and more interesting than anything involving lost civilizations. When the Egyptians saw that Sirius rising each year reliably predicted the Nile flood, they did not call it a coincidence. They saw it as evidence of a universe that operated according to deep, consistent laws. And in their worldview, laws that consistent and that precise had to reflect something greater than chance. To name those patterns after gods was not a failure of reasoning. It was their way of saying that the universe made sense and that the order behind it deserved to be honored. What the ancient Egyptians built, they built with human hands and human minds. The precision was real. The knowledge was genuine. And it came from exactly the place that makes it most impressive, from people who kept watching the sky, kept recording what they saw, and never stopped paying attention. If you made it all the way to the end, leave a comment below with the ancient civilization or mystery which you want covered next. Subscribe if you have not already, and the next video is on screen right now.